From accusing creators of stealing editing styles to being accused of stealing houses.
What I can only describe as retaliation from the person who's my ex, former employer, and prior colleague, Blair is in the process of currently foreclosing my home.
Emotional abuse.
The harassment.
You asshat.
The abuse.
Because God knows why, because you're bitter about a breakup because your cash cow left you.
And the creation of fake IDs to dox all her friends.
This is the truth about Sad Milk. It really looks like creative differences is dumb AF. Blair tweeting about being stabbed in the back, one topic, leaving his supporter server, and then so on and so forth. And I was a big fan of the click. I thought his streams were great, blah, blah, blah. But then I think Blair saw some of his streams. He did a stream where he watched some of his old videos.
Here's how the exposer became the exposed. She built her entire brand around calling out suspicious behavior, only to become the one doing it. Meet Illuminaughtii, real name Blair Zon, a content creator on YouTube from the US who spent nearly a decade building a brand on being the ethical watchdog of the internet. With a sharp tone, dark humor, and seemingly relentless research, Blair carved out her place in the commentary and video essay niche by diving into topics like MLMs, shady charities, and corporations with questionable ethics. She positioned herself as someone who wouldn't just entertain, but educate, pulling back the curtain on deceitful business practices and making complex scandals digestible for her audience. Her series, like Corporate Casket, became a must-watch for those interested in the intersection of capitalism, corruption, and consumer culture. For years, she was praised as one of the most consistent and woke voices on the platform. But in 2023, the narrative flipped. The whistleblower became the one being exposed. Former collaborators stepped forward, legal battles emerged, and fans began to question if the anti-corruption figure they had trusted was really just another manipulator hiding behind the content. Allegations of emotional abuse, tax evasion, doxing, and outright hypocrisy began to flood social media, and suddenly Blair wasn't the voice of reason anymore. She was the headline, and that was the beginning of the end. A little fun fact, if you guys didn't know, MLM stands for multi-level marketing. Simply put, it's a business model where people earn money by both selling products and recruiting new members into their business network. Many people say that MLM often resembles pyramid schemes where only the members at the top make a profit, and the people on the lower end are often struggling, and Blair had built her entire brand off of exposing such schemes. Before the drama, the controversies, legal troubles, blow-ups, sponsor exits, subscriber nosedive, there was simply Blair, known online as Illuminaughtii. She began her YouTube channel quietly in 2013 and initially posted scattered content. Like many YouTubers do, she found her niche later down the line, in 2016, where she honed in on posting content about exposing unethical companies, multi-level marketing schemes, and nonprofits that were exactly living up to their names. Her videos had a raw, no-secrets, investigative tone that made the audience feel that they were being let in on some well-hidden secrets, and her style had quickly gained traction and made her a YouTube sensation. That's when Corporate Casket was born, her beloved podcast. This new project of hers quickly became her main focus. It was polished, clean, informative, and had a straightforward narrative. Each episode revolved around a new focus. Some days, she talked about pyramid schemes like Herbalife.
Herbalife is probably the best example I've talked about so far that illustrates how dangerous these products and how unregulated.
And the next, she explored suspicious charities such as Wounded Warrior Project.
For many years, but it's the way that they operate is what I have.
And even talked about Amazon's exploitative practices towards their employees.
I'm sure we all know that they've had some issues. Maybe that, the way they treat their employees leaves a little something to be desired, but how bad are...
All in all, Blair utilized her skills, her sharp editing, dark humor, and her famous voice of reason that the audience had come to love to tackle issues that others often ignored. Or so her audience thought. She gained a name for herself as a vigilante, sort of an anti-corporate Sherlock Holmes, but with PowerPoint and sources to back her claims. Her audience ate it up. By 2019, she had gained traction and had become one of the fastest growing names in the video essay niche of YouTube. Her videos went beyond the realm of commentary and transcended into something along the lines of an investigative, almost documentary-style content. The way she approached these videos was, here's everything that's wrong with the system, and here's why you should care. This mix of activism, while also making sure the content was algorithm-friendly, resonated greatly with the audience. Since starting her channel in 2013, Illuminaughtii has posted over 500 videos, with the bulk of that content being produced in a surprisingly short span of just 1 to 1.5 years. It was a rapid-fire output that reflected how aggressively she pursued growth and visibility on the platform. Her content covered a wide range, from her signature anti-MLM deep dives and corporate exposés to full episodes of her Corporate Casket podcast, which became one of her flagship series. She also sprinkled in videos on controversial charities, brand breakdowns, and social commentary, creating what seemed like a comprehensive resource for those seeking the truth behind the facade of trusted companies. The sheer volume gave her authority, but would later also contribute to the backlash, as cracks in the quality and credibility of her research became harder to ignore. At her peak, Illuminaughtii was considered one of the top, if not the top creator in the YouTube commentary niche, and more specifically in the anti-MLM niche. She didn't gain that spot just for giggles. She worked hard for it by posting clean, in-depth videos by looking into shady business and pyramid schemes. She had reached such a level that if people searched for MLM scam in the YouTube search bar, her videos were the first to pop up. But then the Sad Milk era came. Launched as a side project in 2019, Sad Milk was a collaboration between Blair, The Click, Wonderstruck Guy, Oz Media, and One Topic. The videos posted by this team were a complete 180 from Illuminauttii's regular content. Here they posted reaction videos, meme reviews, and subreddit commentary. This gave Blair a chance to show her more chill, laid-back side, which the audience adored. They weren't just listening to a voice through the screen anymore. They were hanging out with a friend group, and it felt oh so personal. But the thing is, not everything that shines is made of gold. For a while, everything was golden. She was hitting strides. Millions of views and listeners on both her videos and podcast, sponsorship upon sponsorship, her name being mainstreamed. She became every small influencer's dream. She had the audience, the influence, and the aesthetics. But then, the goal started to rust and the facade began to crumble. A dispute between Legal Eagle and Illuminaughtii broke out, and nobody would have predicted that it would turn into one of the most intense declines in YouTube history. But it wasn't just this event that named it the most intense scene. It was the behind-the-scenes tension, legal threats, emotional manipulation, and even alleged abuse that got it to that status. Former partners came forward about the problems they faced working alongside Illuminaughtii. Discord messages leaked, and suddenly everything flipped. It turns out Illuminaughtii wasn't the hero of the exposé, she was the subject of one. And from that moment, the empire she had built started to crumble. Now, we would like to talk a little bit about Legal Eagle's history so you can better understand the sheer stupidity of Blair's claims. Born under the name Devin James Stone, his channel revolved around discussing and breaking down legal concepts, high-profile court cases, and the decisions made by the Supreme Court. He was the go-to channel for people seeking information on complex legal cases, made easy. The irony was that when Illuminaughtii had made her claim, she wasn't just picking a random public figure, she'd gone after a civil trial lawyer who had a particular focus on areas such as contract disputes, real estate litigation, and product liability. In short, he knew his legal stuff. So, Blair's claim of plagiarism was a complete bluff, and everyone knew it. But to understand how the mighty fell, you have to understand the bigger picture of it. You have to grasp the power she had, the image and audience she had cultivated, and the influence she had over the community. She wasn't just a YouTuber, she was a brand, a name people recognized. And it's well known that the bigger you are, the harder you fall. Illuminaughtii didn't crash overnight. It wasn't even within a week. It was slow and gradual, post by post, thread by thread. And the irony of it all is that the person who exposed unethical people and companies became the one exposed. April 2023 rolled around, and so did the Legal Eagle drama. Illuminaughtii had accused Legal Eagle of copying her editing style. She claimed that he had specifically copied her torn paper and highlighter effects, which were the hallmark of her podcast, the famous Corporate Casket series. She tweeted, "Not Legal Eagle editors broaching my editors to take my video's style, and when they didn't give up the info, they literally copied it. And BTU, I have messages from my editors and found an email from them too. Just changed the color to purple from blue. Interesting." She also then proceeded to post a screenshot of the email she had found and tweeted, "So I went through my email and found this, just outright saying, yeah, I'm gonna do this, but if you could make it easier for me, I'd appreciate it." The email's screenshot she had posted was Legal Eagle's editor, asking Blair about the Adobe After Effects plugin she had used for the intro of the first NFL video, where the lighter colors seemed to stick out of the screen in a 3D effect. Now, if you live in the 21st century, You know these effects are as unique as adding lo-fi music in a study vlog? In short, not at all. But Blair wasn't having it. She took over Twitter, pretty much claiming rights over some basic Adobe After Effects presets. But Blair quickly found out that Legal Eagle wasn't someone to mess with. He clapped back publicly and politely, asking if she could provide some hard evidence that the editing style was 100% truly original. And the cherry on top, Legal Eagle had posted the specific plugins he'd used in his own videos, showing that the style existed long before Blair and her videos came along. The infamous tweet was made saying, "Hey Illuminaughtii, I think this is a big misunderstanding. Perhaps great minds think alike. No one on my team is trying to copy you. Without an exhaustive review of your channel, I believe we used those two styles before your channel did. We've used them for 3 to 4 years." That's right, Legal Eagle had been using that editing style before anyone had even heard of Illuminaughtii, and just like that, he debunked her entire story, and it was clean. Then, like dominoes, came other YouTubers, such as HBomberGuy, who dropped the infamous tweet saying, "I would define plagiarism as something a bit more specific. For example, copying someone else's commentary directly into your script." Then proceeded to add the very clip Blair had copied from Brian Deer's documentary. Past allegations also resurfaced during this whole feud of Illuminaughtii allegedly threatening her ex-boyfriend, who goes by the name Azothan.
Spewing on there.
The harassment.
You asshat.
The abuse.
Because God knows why, because you're bitter about a breakup because your cash cow left you.
He came out with a tweet in April 2019 saying, "To keep track of public events, Illuminaughtii just called my home phone to threaten me. This is after fabricating felony crimes. I am done remaining silent." Classic Blair. Creating fake identifies, fake phone numbers, fake names, all just to harass her ex-friends and ex-partners. And you will soon see multiple instances for this happening as we go further into the video. Coming back to the boyfriend, he even posted multiple videos where he talked about his experience in detail, which was aired almost 6 years ago, before Blair was caught in the main controversies she's oh so well known for in the YouTube community. He painted a picture that was different than the one Blair had shown the public, and nobody could have predicted that these accusations would become part of the larger picture during the Sad Milk and Legal Eagle era. There was also a time where Blair was tied to the informal leftist mafia. The leftist mafia was a group of YouTubers who cross-promoted each other and even shared collaborators. The association she had with the leftist mafia had given her clout a super boost, which was especially done by live streaming and discussing other creators in the same niche. However, when things started to go downhill for Blair, the group was quick to distance themselves from her, which highlighted the severity of her claims and the feud.
Is Mike Figueredo, David Dole, Ole, Lance, and me, Matt Binder. And that's it. The 5 of us.
They also expressed their views about the Sad Milk situation, where one of the leftist mafia's members, Mike Figueredo, said that he felt really bad for Wonder and the clique. And I think her behavior was manipulative, controlling, and it was deceitful, and it was downright abusive.
And the clique, I think that her behavior was manipulative, controlling, it was deceitful, and it was downright abusive.
His words were something that the entire community had suspected and speculated, but hearing it from a fellow creator had given these accusations a new weight and seriousness that shrouded the entire community like a black veil. They also publicly came forward with their decision to separate from her.
We're severing ties, and going forward, you know, we're not going to be a part of that shit. So, you know.
To put it simply, they wasted no time in simply distancing themselves from the drama, but they had pulled back and expressed their full-on disapproval of the whole situation. The leftist mafia, who had once shared their platform with Blair, had drawn a firm line, and once that line was drawn, it was clear that there was no going back. It was clear they weren't the ones to sugarcoat things. Instead, they had made a deliberate and final decision, and had shown how far this situation had spiraled to the point where backtracking was not an option, and never will be. So you can guess that things were going pretty bad for Blair, and it might also make you wonder how she addressed all this, that is, if she ever did. Well, when everyone sought some sort of explanation from her, she kind of vanished. No videos, no response, no episodes. It was total silence for a few days, but then she emerged from the shadows, sneakily and quietly. But it wasn't with a proper video where she addressed everything. No, rather it was a vague tweet where she mentioned that she had apologized to Legal Eagle privately. Blair was operating on no solid proof, no receipts, and just pure vibes. But it was too late. The tweet had already started a war, one that would escalate into something much bigger than anyone could ever expect. If April 2023 was the warning shot, May 2023 is where the war began. At this time, the feud and dramas went well beyond the legal eagle editing drama. It had crossed over into a very personal line, the type of personal that no one ever leaves clean. The downfall began with The Click, a former member of Sad Milk who had shared a series of exposing, harsh Twitter threads accusing Illuminaughtii of emotional manipulation, conducting smear campaigns, and even the creation of fake IDs of Reddit and Twitter accounts to dox all her friends and fellow members of the Sad Milk crew. He talked in detail about the years of toxicity everyone faced working alongside Blair, how they were gaslit, abused, undermined, and quietly villainized behind the scenes. But this wasn't a he said, she said situation. Other creators started to chime in with their own input and their own experiences regarding this issue. The Click, he mentioned that Blair was, quote, giddy lashing out at friends and fans, paranoia, and general poor anger management. He even mentioned that she spent half an hour screaming at me for an array of random things, calling me a bad friend, lazy, and a bunch of random accusations that didn't really have anything to do with me. He had even directly quoted what Blair had said to him during that time, tweeting, "There is no way you can have the resume you claim and be this stupid," and so on. It was clear from some of these tweets that Blair was using something Click had done years ago, specifically in 2019, where he'd made a few jokes that had aged like bad milk in his own words, and was using that as primary, quote-unquote, evidence against him. He brought to attention that when people started questioning that maybe she was the reason everyone left, there was a very convenient updipping of 11 to 14-year-old videos of me. And cherry on top, unlike a certain someone, cough cough Blair, the Click even said that he publicly owned up to my mistakes and apologized, doing my best to be transparent and honest about my past. After the Click, the next one to speak up was Wonderstruck Guy, and his claims shook the internet to its core. He claimed several serious things. He talked about his time while he was homeless, and Blair had allegedly taken his car back, confiscated his YouTube Play Gold button, which is irreplaceable by the way, and didn't even spare his skateboard. For context, this was back when Wonder was around 20 to 21 years old, and had left his state to be closer to Blair and the crew to work on content together. As if this wasn't bad enough, she even publicly shared his suicide note without any warning or consent from Wonderstruck Guy himself. When Wonderstruck Guy tried to speak up about it, Blair's managers threatened him by using an NDA he had signed as leverage.
I explained the situation to my dad, and I ended up leaving to go see my father so I could spend the 4th of July with him and stay a while so I could mentally reset. I also did digital work, and this was not in violation of my employment as I could work wherever I wanted via laptop. But before going, Blair had me sign her BMW contract she had been meaning to get to me for a while. She was fully aware of my intent to visit my father and stay a while, especially given that, again, I worked remotely. You now know the events that led up to July 29th, where the car was repossessed. You know the story of the deadlines, how I wasn't kept on payroll, how I flew to Colorado to make sure said deadlines occurred, etc, etc. We don't need to fully recap there. As Blair mentioned, she said I was legally bound to this car via contract. However, after I was fired and Colorado was said and done, I had my father, who is an ex-police officer and the former contractor, as well as a lawyer friend of the family, look over and review this legally binding contract. They both agreed that this was in fact not a legally binding contract. I'd like to state that I am not a lawyer and I don't know how that fully works, but let's say for argument's sake the contract was legally binding. Blair claims I broke the contract by the following: no proof of insurance, cars to reside in El Paso County. Okay, well here's my proof of insurance and here's my official mailing address during this time. You can clearly see it states Colorado. Here again, you can also see that my mailing address has not changed after the repossession. This car was not residing in Texas as I did not reside in Texas. I lived in Colorado. I'd now like to point to a conversation I had with Oz Media because Blair and I were not on speaking terms at this time, which was something she herself suggested took place between us. July 28th, 2021, one day before the repossession, Oz and I had a phone call together where I stated I would not be moving back to Colorado. He agreed it was probably the best option for me as he was still at this time sympathetic towards everything happening. Note again, the car did not reside in Texas as I did not have a residence in Texas at this time. Upon hearing this, Blair informed Oz that she wanted me to pay something that is known as a depreciation value, which is essentially, it's like, okay, you can't pay for the car, so you're going to pay for the value that the car lost while it was in your possession. I agreed. I didn't want further bad blood. I just wanted this whole situation to be done, as it had caused me enough stress as is. Oz gave me a set of options as to what I could do with the car, and I picked option 2, where it was agreed I would bring the car back to Colorado, gather my belongings, and I'd pay the value via regular payments, etc. However, when I asked to see everything my name was tied to legally with the car, which any person would do, I was met with a copy of the car contract. So I asked again to see the paperwork of the car. This was to ensure I was obtaining an accurate account of the car's value so I could legally assure what I was paying for. I believe that any person in my position should have done this. It is the only right thing to do to make sure you legally know what you're paying. After this message, I never once got a response. Later in the early hours of July 29th, 2021, Blair flew down to obtain the BMW. Hours after I agreed to pay for the car's appreciation value under the condition that I was paying what was accurate and visible to me. I did not have the text itself, as currently the phone I had at the time suffered, I believe it was a corrupted UI. All I know is I had a Google Pixel, and after some time, I believe last year, I plugged in the phone, gave me a big old question mark when I charged it. So I looked it up and I was like, what does this mean? Essentially, it just meant, yeah, your phone's kind of buddy. So if anyone knows how to pull images from a UI corrupted phone, please reach out and contact me, as I will happily provide these texts if I'm able to do so. At roughly 3 a.m., Blair sent me a text stating that I had breached numerous contract violations and that she was in Texas to repossess the vehicle. It goes without saying I was asleep at this time, so obviously I did not see a message that was sent to me at 3 a.m. in the morning. Once I woke up and I saw the messages, I asked Blair for an explanation as to how I breached my contract, to which I was ignored. However, Blair stated she would make arrangements for me to obtain my items. This never took place. I took to Twitter, where I made a tweet regarding what had just happened, and I was immediately reminded by one of Blair's managers that I could not speak out on the matter, and I was threatened with NDA. If I had to explain the feeling, I felt helpless. Again, I just wanted to do the right thing and do it the way I was asked, and now I wake up and all my belongings are gone. I cannot explain how weak that makes a person feel. It feels like just a massive, excuse me here, a massive you for no reason. Blair puts in her drive that the car had bottles, a few wrappers, and some clothes. What she fails to show in her video is my skateboard, both my Sad Milk and Wonderstruck Guy play buttons, my $800 GoPro set, and a whole list of other items I was prohibited from obtaining, which I found out recently from Oz. These items were subsequently thrown in the trash after some time. I'd like to touch on the condition of the car as well. It looks bad, and truthfully, if I saw that, I would turn my head as well. I would think this is a madman who owned this car. But I'd like you to remain open-minded that I was basically living in this car due to not being able to stay in the same house as Blair, as my therapist recommended specifically that I do not do that. I did not have a home to go to, and I was on my dad's couch most of the time. As for the cracked windshield, that was due to a semi-truck pulling out in front of me on the highway.
Oh, no, in the sort of gesture that we're trying to do.
Councilmember Kevin Wright.
There's a lot of people out there who have probably experienced it. Sometimes semi-trucks will get pebbles stuck in their flaps and they will fly and they will ding the windshield and it's a crack. It sucks, but it happens. There's no way I myself could have pulled off this effect on this car. In regards to the glove box, I really don't know what happened. I went to get something out of the glove box and it just popped off. It's a small piece of plastic, and the BMW dealership in my town was more than happy to fix these issues when I visited them, which is a record Blair herself has. When I got the car, I was told it was insured via the BMW dealership, so I would have to have my own insurance, and then BMW had their own separate insurance. So if something happened with a car, I could go to the dealership, show the issues, and they would happily fix the issues for no charge at all. Which again, Blair has a record of me visiting the dealership due to the car blowing a flat due to A, low profile tires, and B, a pothole I didn't see due to nighttime and rain. They told me I could bring the car car back whenever I please, and I intended to fix these issues before going back to Colorado, as returning it in such a condition would make no sense. After authorities were sent to my house the following morning, I explained the situation and the officers relayed their official opinion that I should cut contact with Blair, to which I did. I sent her one last text stating I would be ceasing communication and that she could reach me and make arrangements for my belongings via my father's number. Not one attempt was ever made. Legal demand letters were sent and signed off for. You can see the draft of such a demand letter and what it looked like on official paper in my Google Drive. After months and months of trying and receiving no communication or update, we were told by someone who represented Blair to back off or they would go after us for harassment. I know this is scripted, but I really want to reiterate here that I felt small. I felt defeated. I had literally left my apartment for this. I lost my independence for this. My belongings, either tech related or just memorabilia, were and are still gone to this day. I didn't want to upload because I knew every time I did, I knew Blair was probably checking my social blade laughing at me, as I had seen her do to every single former Sad Milk member for months. I had no way to prove to my friends why I had seemingly high hopes for the future, and in the course of a summer I had almost no money to my name due to Blair's butterfly effect. None of the friends I had made would talk to me, and like OT and Click, rumors began to spread about me too. Admittedly on a smaller scale, but they were still about me nonetheless. I was fired.
It was raw and triggering, and set in stone what the audience had feared. It wasn't a simple run-of-the-mill feud between creators, it was the exposing of a systematic pattern of power abuse. To top it all off, Wonder even mentioned how he felt that Sad Milk had turned from a chill channel, made by a bunch of friends, into a content farm. Now, if you don't know, a content farm is basically where content creators pump out content at high speeds without really caring or worrying about the quality. Instead of focusing on quality over quantity, they do the opposite of placing their focus on quantity over quality. The main motive of a content farm is generally to produce more revenue, views, or even ad revenue. It's like fast food, but in the media world. After Wonder, Oz Media, and One Topic were only fuel to the fire. They talked about a work environment that was led by fear, content was closely watched and managed, creative freedom was pretty much non-existent, and legal threats were even used as a fear tactic to keep everyone silent. As per the claims of the former members, Sad Milk had turned from a friend group making videos for fun into a full-blown dictatorship, and Blair was the evil mastermind behind it all. To break it down, One Topic mentioned that it was becoming unhealthy for us behind the scenes and you could see how drained we were. This simple one-liner statement revealed a much bigger and sinister truth, one that hinted at long-term emotional exhaustion as well as a toxic and abusive work environment, where everyone except Blair suffered. What started as a fun project between a group of friends turned into a burden more than a chill creative outlet. Oz Media's take on this was that the whole of the project, it was mostly controlled by Blair. Oz Media also solidified that Blair was indeed the aggressor. She always has been. As an example of this behavior, look at the Legal Eagle situation. Blair has the habit of starting fights, but will almost never publicly apologize if proven wrong. He even spoke out about some more serious claims, saying that he had actively been trying to minimize her hateful behavior towards others by trying to filter what she said so that she wouldn't get into bigger drama. For example, on Sad Milk, she would blacklist former collaborators from being mentioned, but manually approve hateful comments towards them, which, in my opinion, were specifically ones which instead praised her or the remaining members, including me. It was clear the severity this whole situation had on everyone, especially Oz Media, where he mentioned within the Twitter thread that, "I've lost so many friends, isolated myself, been at her side despite feeling like my connections to the world were being severed." By late 2023, Sad Milk announced their disbandment, and all their videos were promptly made private. They simply no longer existed. A content house that was thriving only a few months ago, one that had built up a cult-like fan base and were taking over YouTube like a storm, vanished from the face of the earth as if it never existed. But Blair hadn't given up. Not just yet. In response to this whole shebang, Blair had punched back a 40-minute-long apology video, if it can even be labeled as one, where she basically painted herself as the victim. She even mentioned the Sad Milk crew's laziness and unproductivity, especially honing in on the Click, where she mentioned that he didn't know any work. In truth, Click wasn't given any work to do, and when he was, there were time zone differences that made it seem like he wasn't working. She even mentioned that she'd ended up doing all the work and had somehow become in charge of the entire channel management, such as scheduling recording times, hiring editors, and much more.
I'd now like to address the Click's claims that I had any involvement in trying to gain control of his Discord server by, as he says, tossing around accusations at staff. Because unfortunately, there were some truly sinister things occurring in the Click's Discord that were brought to my attention. For this next section, I would like to provide a trigger warning. There will be mentions of explicit language, mentions of pedophilia, graphic imagery, and inappropriate behavior around minors. Before I go any further into this, I want to mention that there's going to be resources in my description box regarding what I'm about to discuss now. I do think it's relevant to bring up that in 2019, the Click's channel was terminated by YouTube for content. At the time, a few YouTubers, including myself and Oz Media, band together to help reinstate Click's channel. Oz spoke to his MCN representative, and I spoke with YouTube directly. This is something that I now look back on with so much regret. Had I known at the time what was going on behind the scenes, I never would have participated in helping Click with his channel. Allow me to explain the situation a little bit. The Click and I had shared Discord moderators around the time of Sad Milk being created. Due to the Click's inaction, our shared moderators had brought a situation in his server to my attention, a situation involving pedophilia. In Click's Discord, there was a 19-year-old bragging about a 12-year-old that he was claiming to be involved with. A moderator reached out to get more information on this situation. This 19-year-old then reiterates, and I am directly quoting this here, "I talked with my therapist about it, even too, and he told me as long as I don't touch her, it's okay." Click and his team did not pursue any immediate action to ban, restrict, or report this individual. So those shared mods came to me, and they told me that they were uncomfortable. So we used this individual's ID number and we banned them from the Sad Milk server and from my server, and we reported them to Discord's trust and safety team, who we hope did pursue this further. Then I went to contact Click to see what was going on, and it was mainly because I didn't want to believe that he would blow off someone clearly discussing such an inappropriate relationship. In fact, this was right off the heels of one of his admins sharing pornographic content to people that they knew were minors. One thing that I would like to point out here is how these users were pushing pornographic materials to a minor who explicitly states that their parent is in the room with them, so they were hiding their phone.
But the video took a darker turn when she started to hint at the Click enabling pedophilia in his Discord server, a severe claim if you ask me, and which of course muddied the waters altogether and undermined her entire fake apology video. The tweet where she'd claimed it stated, "Casual reminder, pedophilia is never a gray area. It's wrong. If someone you know won't take action, then they are complicit to the problem. Maps aren't part of the community. Wanting to be involved romantically with children is not okay. Stop making excuses to kids." But there were no claims, no evidence, and nor any proof that further explained this wild allegation. And for a lot of people, this was the final straw. In case you didn't know, MAPS stands for Minor Attracted Persons, a term that's been at the center of major controversy for years. It's essentially a rebranding of the word pedophile, intended by some circles to be a more neutral or non-stigmatizing label. The justification behind this term is often framed as clinical or academic, used in psychological discussions to describe individuals who experience attraction to minors but may not act on it. But let's be honest, for the vast majority of the public, the term is seen as a dangerous euphemism that risks normalizing or softening what is clearly a predatory and illegal behavior. Many advocacy groups, survivors, and even academics reject the term outright, arguing that it could be weaponized to minimize harm or muddy moral clarity. After this claim, the Click clapped back with his own response, essentially explaining the MAP situation. He showed evidence of the MAP user being removed soon after his actions had been brought to the attention of the moderator team. Not only that, but he clarified that during this entire situation, it was 2 a.m. in his time zone, during which he was asleep, and that by the time he had woken up, the issue had long since been dealt with. He even explained that the pedophilia issue is not because the Click is fostering a community that allows this, it's because of the type of platform Discord is, and it's an overall issue throughout all communities on Discord, and he isn't wrong about this.
Situation brought up mentions a pedo joining my Discord. It is said that neither I nor my team took action against this predatory person and actively chose to do nothing to resolve the situation, basically just letting them run amok. Click did not address it or wasn't fast enough, etc. Here are the DMs of said creep, full username, etc. that she has already showed in her video. Now, the first detail that was conveniently left out of the accusations is that I was asleep. In my time zone, this occurred around 2 AM, and within the span of me sleeping, this random creep in question had already gotten banned. I took the liberty to dig through the old ban logs on my server, and here it is. He was banned at 2:14 AM, my time zone. She brought one topic into a chat room, as she shown in her video and her accusations. However, her statement in these DMs about Click knowing is very odd, as I would have been very unconscious when the ban was happening. She might be referring to me knowing by the time I woke up, but the fact remains I wasn't there, nor did I endorse this random creep. Hey, I don't mean to bother you, but can we talk soon when you're free? I'm in a bit of a conundrum and I don't know what to do. Yeah, what's going down? Can I call? GF is getting ready for work. How sensitive is the topic? Very. It involves the P word. What is going on? In Click server and Click knowing. 19-year-old and 12-year-old combo public server, blah blah blah, did nothing, and this was on the heels of Click's admin sending naughty stuff. And one topic says, hang on, I'll walk over to my mic. Okay, ready? Thank you, always. But as stated, a ban was already issued before I even woke up, about 14 hours before Blair brought this up with OT, if her timestamps are correct. So this was actually not a ban I was even personally involved with. It's also important to note that this is, sadly, the norm. Our server alone has 44,000 members and almost 3,000 bans. It is a well-known fact that Discord has real problems when it comes to exploitative individuals and communities using their platform. We as creators do our best to clean this up, as well as the platform teams. Neither I nor my team condone this sort of exploitative behavior and do our best to address it when it comes to our attention. This isn't a Click's Discord issue, it's a Discord issue.
To us, it seems like Blair was trying to throw the Click under the bus to make herself look better in comparison to her former employees' friends, so that the court of public opinion would be on her side. And this is further supported by screenshots of the Click and Blair's Discord DMs, in which Blair states that she is proud of the Click for handling the situation like this. If this wasn't enough to prove that Blair is a manipulator and liar who tries to control every aspect of her friends' and employees' lives, such as making them sign NDAs and having their housing and finances all dependent on her, then maybe Blair's longtime right-hand man, OZ Media's recounts will change your mind. Oz showed up in Wonderstruck Guy's response video, and boy did he have things to say about Blair. Besides backing up both the Clicks and Wonder's words, he claimed that Blair routinely used manipulative tactics to keep her friends feeling sorry for her, and faked tears and cried multiple times to get her way. She was so used to doing this that she did it even for little things. She faked tears because she forgot about prior arrangements she had made, and used the excuse of her cat needing to go to the vet, and even faked tears and apology videos to manipulate her fans, as well as numerous other instances. He said that her tone in her response video and her tone in his personal DMs were night and day, and that he was actually low-key scared to make a video about her. And the worst part is, his fears weren't even completely invalid.
Tears and said, I have to take Casper to the vet and I'm very scared so I won't be able to make it. Or for talking to other like content creators that she's had issues with, of welling up those tears for like apologies. For talking with employees, for talking with me or her roommates. It's something that I have watched her do on numerous occasions. If they were genuine, I mean, there's that, but I have a really hard time believing it with how many times I've actually seen her build those tears up. And considering when I did post my thread on Twitter and I did make the comments that I made, the tone that she had like in messages was night and day. What I'm trying to say is that the tone that she had in the end of her video was not the tone that she had with me behind the scenes. The tone that she had with me behind the scenes was very much accusing. A few vague threats were thrown in there, which I don't want to go into details on because I just, for me personally, with how I see all of this.
After having all her claims debunked by her former sad milk friends, Blair responded on a Twitter thread, claiming that she would be defending herself against these false allegations. She said in a now-deleted Twitter thread, "Hey everyone, I am fully aware of the recent false allegations that have surfaced. I want to take a moment to publicly state that I am taking these allegations very seriously and am committed to rectifying the situation promptly and appropriately. I understand the concerns and potential impact that these false allegations have caused. My team and I are actively working behind the scenes to gather all the relevant facts. I am committed to transparency and accountability throughout this process. Rest assured that I am taking decisive actions as soon as possible. Thank you to those who are standing by me during this challenging time. I will not allow these false allegations to be weaponized to silence my voice. I appreciate your patience and understanding during this challenging time. I am dedicated to upholding my channel's values and delivering on our commitments. This was rich coming from Blair, who by this point was provably making false allegations against her former friends and employees while simultaneously silencing them through NDAs, financial leverage, and threats. This just goes to show that Blair can dish it out but can't take it. Not only this, but the response video she claimed she would make never happened. She said that she and her team were working on a way to rectify the situation, but no response video or post was ever made. What was really going on was shocking. Behind the scenes, Blair had chosen to take an offensive stance. She served both Wonderstruck Guy and Oz Media with cease and desist orders in hopes to legally silence them. Luckily for Wonderstruck Guy and Oz Media, the internet was behind them, and Wonderstruck Guy managed to raise over $20,000 on his GoFundMe that only had a $1,000 goal. However, that wasn't the only thing she did. In August of 2023, Blair had tried to legally repossess ownership of Oz Media's house. Oz Media brought this situation to light in a video titled, "Let's Talk." In a heartfelt opening, he revealed that Blair, his former employer, ex-girlfriend, and one-time friend, was now taking him to court and actively trying to foreclose on his home. This, he said, was one of the biggest reasons he had been scared to speak out. Blair held immense financial power over him, and that control dated back to the early days of their relationship. At the time they began dating, Oz was just 20 years old while Blair was 28. Early on, she had terrible credit. She convinced a financially inexperienced and impressionable Oz to take out loans, make purchases, and even lease property in his own name, all for her benefit. She essentially used his name and clean financial record to do what she couldn't do herself. Because of his age, lack of financial literacy, and trust in Blair as both a romantic partner and a figure of authority, Oz agreed. Over time, however, the debt piled up, and Oz found himself responsible for major financial commitments, including a multi-million-dollar home that Blair had pushed him to buy, reportedly under the threat that she would break up with him if he didn't. When Oz struggled to make payments, he turned to Blair for help. After all, she was earning far more than he was and had been the one to instigate the purchases. But instead of helping without strings, Blair kept a ledger of every dollar Oz borrowed, treating every bit of financial support as an outstanding debt. This ledger reportedly included non-refundable design fees and land deposits, all for a house he never wanted to buy in the first place. To make things worse, Blair was allegedly talking about Oz's financial situation behind his back, even to mutual friends. This made Oz feel ashamed and dependent, and contributed to the belief that he was a leech, a narrative Blair actively perpetuated. Complicating everything was the fact that Blair wasn't just his partner. She was also his employer. This left Oz financially, emotionally, and professionally trapped. According to him, the stress was eating away at his mental health. At one point, while their relationship was falling apart, Blair emotionally manipulated Oz into signing legal documents. She told him it was the right thing to do and that it would fix their relationship. In reality, what he signed was a deed of trust that gave Blair the legal right to foreclose on his home if he missed a payment for the next 10 years. To add even more pressure, Oz revealed that Blair exploited a deeply personal trauma from his past. His mother had been incarcerated for embezzlement, something that left a lasting emotional impact on him. Blair allegedly told Oz that the money she had given him came from company funds, and unless he signed the legal documents she provided, both of them could be investigated for embezzlement, with Oz being especially vulnerable. She claimed that signing the papers would protect them and help her cover her tracks. By invoking his trauma and presenting herself as a potential victim too, Blair manipulated Oz into believing that he was responsible for a serious legal risk, using fear and guilt to push him into compliance. According to Oz, this kind of manipulative, coercive control is a pattern for Blair. Whether it's through loans, NDAs, employment, or legal threats, she ensures control over everyone in her orbit. Luckily, after Oz bravely shared his story, the internet rallied behind him in an overwhelming show of support. During a live stream, he set a goal to raise $10,000 to help cover the legal costs related to the foreclosure proceedings on his home. In a matter of under 30 minutes, his viewers hit the goal, and then they tripled it, raising about $33,000. It was a deeply heartfelt and powerful moment, showing just how much people believed in Oz and wanted to help him reclaim control after everything he had endured. The outpouring of compassion was a clear message. He wasn't alone anymore. This was a new low for Blair. Calling people out for online beef is one thing, But to try and make someone who you once called your friend homeless for daring to speak out against you just shows what kind of characterless person Blair truly is. While she claimed that she would take accountability and show transparency in her tweet, she did the complete opposite by targeting her former associates in a legal manner. This went against what she had shown her audience in her videos and from her channel before, because instead of finding the facts and presenting the information in a new light that might make her come off a bit more favorable, she chose to bully her adversaries in an attempt to silence them. This was just another strong-arm tactic by Blair because she is in a more financially advantageous position than her ex-friends and would have more resources in favor in the court of law rather than the court of public opinion, something that she didn't shy away from using back when the average internet user was still on her side. One of the more well-known incidents of this occurred long before this drama between Blair and a smaller YouTuber, Cruel World Happy Mind. At the time, Cruel World Happy Mind, CWHM, was a relatively small creator with around 20,000 subscribers. She had released a thoughtful video about Tyra Banks, presenting her own research and commentary. Not long after, Blair uploaded a video on the same topic, and the similarities between the two were hard to ignore. Viewers quickly picked up on the overlap. Many began commenting on Sim's video, pointing out that Blair's content seemed strikingly similar, and even suggesting that Blair had copied her work. But rather than jumping to conclusions or accusing anyone publicly, CWHM took a mature and respectful approach. She sent Blair a private message on Twitter noting the similarities, expressing that she admired her, and simply asking to have a conversation about the situation. Not to start drama, but to clear the air due to the growing comments from viewers. Unfortunately, Blair didn't respond privately or kindly. Instead, she took the issue public. On an episode of the Double Cleanse podcast, Blair misrepresented the interaction, claiming that CWHM had accused her of copying and was seeking credit.
I'm gonna try and keep it vague so I don't mention this person's channel.
Yeah.
But it's a very small YouTuber. She DM'd me on Instagram claiming that I copied her. She claimed that I copied her video that she had done maybe a couple weeks ago, right? And the video that I had done the topic on was suggested to me multiple times from my comment section. So I just listened to my comments and I made a video because that's what people were interested in my opinion on. So she messages me and she goes, "I'm just really disappointed because you're someone I look up to and you copied my video and I want credit."
But that wasn't the case at all. CWHM never accused her of anything. Her message was about addressing the discourse in a cordial way, not placing blame. Blair went even further by criticizing some sources, calling them weak and unprofessional, specifically referencing Wikipedia and BuzzFeed. However, this critique rang hollow to many viewers as Blair herself has used those very sources in her own videos. The move came across as hypocritical and unnecessarily harsh, particularly because it seemed like a way to undermine a smaller creator rather than engage with her concerns constructively.
Before even looking at her videos, is I went to look at her sourcing list because I think that's really important, is what do you use? And she had 5 sources. You know, I have to use a pastebin document because I have anywhere 30 to 70 sources per video. I don't play around. But she had like 5 sources. You know, one was Wikipedia, one was BuzzFeed, one was like TMZ or something.
Oh my god. The most, you know, oh god.
In response, CWHM posted a video to clarify the situation. She calmly explained her side, reaffirming that she had never accused Blair and only reached out because her audience was bringing up the similarities.
Larger creator posted a video and I, out of the blue, started getting a ton of messages from people saying that this creator copied my video, saying they made a ton of similar points. So getting messages like that freaked me out.
I never straight up accused this creator, this larger creator, of copying me. On top of that, something I didn't mention in that video, and that this creator seems to conveniently also leave out of this whole story, there were no sources on this person's video. The only thing it had in the description was, in parentheses, sources coming soon.
She even sent 2 more private messages to Blair, hoping to clear up the drama and end things on a positive note. Blair still didn't respond directly. Instead, she posted a vague tweet implying she would go live to debunk CWHM's claims, a tweet many interpreted as dismissive and aggressive. At this point, the power imbalance was undeniable. Blair had a much larger platform and influence, while CWHM was a smaller creator just trying to protect her own integrity. The situation became overwhelming, and out of fear of being misrepresented or targeted further, CWHM deleted her video. This situation makes it painfully clear that Blair acted manipulatively, dishonestly, and with complete disregard for the truth. She took a respectful private message and twisted it into a false narrative to protect her ego and reputation, all while punching down on a much smaller creator. Instead of engaging in a mature conversation, She chose to mislead her audience, belittle someone's work, and intimidate them into silence. Her actions weren't just dismissive, Lloyd. They were calculated, hypocritical, and deeply unfair. Blair's behavior throughout this situation shows a willingness to lie, deflect, and smear others to maintain control over how she is perceived, no matter the harm it causes. All these incidents establish a pattern of lies, manipulation, and control that Blair used to keep her friends, employees, and other creators in check. Throughout the months of May and June, the downfall accelerated into what can only be described as a free fall. Major sponsors such as HelloFresh, Stitch Fix, and others began to swiftly distance themselves from the Illuminaughtii brand, pulling out of partnerships and quietly removing her from their influencer rosters. These sponsorships were the backbone of Blair's channel's income, essential for maintaining her high production value, paying staff, however small the team may have been, and funding the day-to-day operations that made her content look as polished and professional as it did. Once these financial lifelines were cut, the cracks in the foundation of her empire began to split wide open. The money began to dry up at an alarming pace. Without sponsors to cushion the blow, Blair had no financial buffer, and her digital presence began to deteriorate just as quickly. The subscriber count, which once surged by the thousands weekly, plummeted. Once seen as the queen of YouTube's commentary niche, she now sat in a digital wasteland of disengagement, dislike ratios, and deafening silence. Her uploads slowed, her presence on social media faded, and former supporters turned into vocal critics. This wasn't just a small blip on the radar. This was a full-blown crash, one that shoved her from the height of YouTube influence into complete irrelevance almost overnight. Then another hit, the alt accounts. Several Reddit users pieced the puzzle pieces together and landed on iilluminaughtii, a throwaway account that had been making suspicious, rude remarks towards the ex-members of Sad Milk, while overly supporting Blair in this whole drama, and without any evidence.
This is the truth about Sad Milk. It really looks like creative differences is dumb AF. Blair tweeting about being stabbed in the back, one topic leaving his supporter server, and then so on and so forth. And I was a big fan of the click. I thought his streams were great, blah, blah, blah. But then I think Blair saw some of his streams. He did a stream where he watched some of his old videos.
HT 2720 to 2747. Surprise, surprise. Around the same time, the Twitter account at DoobieUbi1 emerged, echoing the exact same talking points. Fierce criticism of ex-collaborators, blind support for Blair, and a stream of misinformation presented as truth. It was the digital equivalent of PR sock puppetry, an army of online doubles flooding forums and threads to drown out dissenting voices. The coordinated tone, timing, and lack of genuine dialogue strongly suggested these accounts were part of a broader effort to manipulate public perception, sending a chilling message. Blair wasn't content with shaping her story on her main channel. She sought to bury the criticism entirely through digital puppetry and echo chambers.
Here is a long post. I'm not gonna... You can pause it if you want to read the whole thing. I don't want to. Here is the same account, Doobie on Twitter. This was an account I remember distinctly from 2020, 2021 that was relentlessly harassing myself, my friends, my colleagues, my streaming colleagues, past colleagues, ex-Sad Milk members, community members, you name it.
Then, April 2024, Blair confessed, yes, the accounts were real. However, the damage had already been done. Blair had already lost over 400,000 followers within less than a year and continued to lose more by the minute. The cult-like community and audience she had built was now nowhere to be found. Trust was gone, her platform deteriorating. Although the channel still existed, it didn't have the same digital traffic as before. Actually, it had none at all. After the radio silence broke, Blair tried to make a few quiet returns but was simply met with a negative reaction by her once adoring audience. The videos constantly flopped, oftentimes not even passing 50,000 views, and the comment section, oh boy. If the comments had been left open, which most of the time they had been not, Blair had shut them off after the H-Bomber Guys incident. They were often flooded with aggressive words or harsh criticism. Her last video had been posted a year ago, and to this date, the comments had been shut off due to the severe negative response she was getting. And so, drama that started over a torn paper editing style turned into a full-blown legal dispute of one of the craziest and messiest YouTuber creator downfalls in history. Sad Milk is gone. Friends are now enemies. And most of all, the reputation Blair had devoted her life and time to was now shattered and nowhere to be found. all over the course of a few brutal months. By November 2023, Blair found herself staring down a $26,800 tax evasion lawsuit, a bombshell that shook the YouTube commentary world and raised serious questions about her financial integrity. Initially, some fans leapt to her defense, suggesting that the tax debt must have come from the burden of managing and paying a large editing team. But those close to her, especially ex-collaborators like Oz Media and Wonderstruck Guy, painted a very different picture. One that didn't align with the boss with a big heart narrative. They revealed that Blair's team was actually quite small, made up of only 3 to 4 editors, and many of them were severely underpaid or inconsistently compensated. Oz recounted that instead of receiving regular pay, he was made to pay Blair rent for a car she had provided, an arrangement that left him on the edge of homelessness. Meanwhile, Wonderstruck said most of his income evaporated into vague promises and empty agreements, leaving him financially stranded. Based on accounts from the team, Blair was reportedly paying around $2,000 a month for all her editing work, yet she was earning nearly 10 times that amount monthly. The math simply didn't add up. If the team costs were minimal and the earnings substantial, why was there such a glaring financial shortfall with the IRS? This contradiction sparked a deeper concern. It wasn't that she couldn't pay her taxes, it was that she hadn't prioritized them. Combined with other reports of Blair living a high-consumption lifestyle, from designer shopping to luxury cars and constant Amazon hauls, the lawsuit seemed to reflect not business hardship, but financial irresponsibility. The tax evasion wasn't just a legal issue, it was a reflection of a creator living far beyond her means, and possibly banking on the belief that her rising fame would protect her from the fallout. Even before her $26,800 tax evasion lawsuit became public knowledge and blew up across online forums and drama channels, a troubling pattern had already started to emerge in Blair Zon's financial behavior, particularly in the way she reportedly treated and compensated those closest to her behind the scenes. According to Oz Media, a former Sad Milk collaborator, he never received a formal paycheck despite being heavily involved in video editing, production, and logistical tasks vital to the running of the channel. Instead, Blair allegedly insisted that his compensation came in the form of room and board, a vague and manipulative arrangement that left him financially stranded and eventually led to near homelessness. Oz's story is not an isolated incident. Multiple former collaborators came forward, echoing eerily similar experiences, stating they were doing the work of full-time editors, researchers, or creative leads, yet were treated like live-in assistants or conveniently disposable labor. One described the experience as being on call for whatever Blair needed, yet receiving little to no financial security in return. This toxic imbalance stood in stark contrast to the public image of an ethical and socially conscious creator that Blair projected. Meanwhile, reports indicate that her YouTube empire, particularly during its Corporate Casket heyday, was earning as much as 10 times what she was paying out to her so-called team. This staggering income disparity raised serious red flags not just about her ethics as a content creator and businesswoman, but also about the integrity of her brand, which was built on calling out exploitation and corporate misdeeds. Instead, Blair's treatment of her collaborators suggested a troubling hypocrisy, a woman profiting off exposing abusive business models while allegedly replicating those very structures behind the scenes in her own creative enterprise. But beyond the tax issues, Blair's personal spending habits revealed a stark contradiction to her carefully curated public image. While her audience believed they were supporting a principled, no-nonsense YouTuber exposing corporate malfeasance, behind the scenes, Blair was reportedly splurging on luxury lifestyle items, designer handbags, high-end tech, multiple Airbnbs, and even BMWs. The most bizarre detail came in from Oz Media, who shared that during his time living with her, he regularly had to throw out 10 Amazon boxes every morning due to her refusal to unpack or reorganize packages, turning her home into a fortress of cardboard clutter. It got worse. These excessive habits were happening despite her team being grossly underpaid. Oz and Wonderstruck Guy both highlight that they earned nowhere near what Blair was pulling in. The compensation they did receive was a tiny fraction of her income, yet Blair still struggled to cover a $26,800 tax bill. That discrepancy raises serious red flags. If her earnings were truly robust, why was she short on taxes? The only plausible explanation is a prioritization of consumption over responsibility, an indulgent lifestyle that masked a volatile financial ecosystem and betrayed the accountability she once preached. Reddit users even claim to have seen interior shots of her home, where the visible chaos was labeled as peak consumption culture. Blair was living in clear contrast to the responsible, minimalist image she tried to portray. On paper, she owed nearly $27,000 in back taxes. Yet in practice, she was living lavishly and allegedly neglecting to pay the very people who helped build her brand. This contradiction hit hard with audiences who had once respected her as a self-proclaimed corporate watchdog. Fans and critics alike began questioning how someone so critical of companies that misuse funds or exploit people could be mirroring those same behaviors behind the scenes. Her financial mismanagement, combined with a lack of transparency, painted a much uglier picture. Blair wasn't just struggling with taxes. She was spiraling into what looked like lifestyle inflation, entitlement, and complete detachment from the values she claimed to stand for. Then came the Reddit excavation. Threads revealed Blair allegedly indulged in lavish spending, not paying taxes but filling her home with Amazon boxes. Oz said there were 10 packages daily, with him cleaning up the mess. Users compared her behavior to living beyond her means, noting luxury purchases like BMWs, frequent moves, and even designer dogs, while her credit history remained. One Redditor panned her rationale as a weird excuse, pointing out that bigger businesses with larger teams manage to pay taxes and keep their employees compensated. Another bluntly summarized, "She very much lives beyond her means and isn't the save for a rainy day type of person." The tax drama became more than just a bill. It exposed alleged financial mismanagement, lifestyle inflation, and a troubling prioritization of self-indulgence over paying what was owed. Blair had a long history of brushing off criticism and undermining concerns about her content's credibility, dating back to early 2021 when viewers first started calling her out for using questionable sources. Rather than leaning on academic rigor or peer-reviewed material, she often relied on pop culture, anecdotal stories, or niche online commentary, leading critics to accuse her of unprofessionalism and superficial research. A now-removed video titled something like "YouTuber Illuminaughtii wants to silence her critics" added fuel to the fire, prompting her to issue a public apology in an attempt to diffuse the heat. But even in that moment, the apology felt perfunctory and incomplete. She acknowledged viewers' feedback but never committed to a clear plan for more robust sourcing or fact-checking moving forward. The incident reflects a larger early pattern. When scrutiny arose, Blair's strategy was to placate rather than improve, and it left many viewers unconvinced. Beyond the headline scandals, Blair Zon, she even sparked major backlash long before the Sad Milk fallout, particularly with her infamous Vocaloid video. Uploaded in late 2022 as part of her Prism of the Past series, the video attempted to dive into Vocaloid history but fell flat due to glaring inaccuracies, misnaming iconic songs, front and back lovers instead of two-faced lovers, mislabeling characters like CU, and spewing misinformation about Vocaloid production. Vocaloid fans were furious. One Reddit thread on Arse Vocaloid summed it up. "She sounds like AI, harassing people for trying to correct her, and I literally just hovered over the thumbnail and left." That wave of criticism exposed not just sloppy research, but a rigid defensiveness. She allegedly labeled well-meaning corrections as harassment, and reportedly blocked dissenters in comments in Discord. But this wasn't just a singular incident. Critics began logging an entire playlist, over 450 entries, tracking her missteps, from minor mispronunciations to full-blown factual errors. It pointed to a recurring pattern. Her investigative veneer often masked rushed, under-sourced content. That pattern was reinforced when an audio glitch left nearly 5 minutes of dead air in a late 2023 video. An error so glaring fans joked she'd gone asleep at the wheel. Dexerto called it a glaring omission, and Rational Wiki decried it as lazy editing. These weren't just technical slip-ups, but emblematic of declining standards and a lack of editorial oversight. She even took aggressive action against smaller creators, showing a pattern of control and intimidation that contrasted heavily with the persona she built online. In 2021, an anonymous source came forward with claims that Blair had been abusing the DMCA system to issue takedown strikes against channels that used brief clips of her content for critique or commentary, material that clearly fell under fair use guidelines. One of the most notable examples was the channel Cruel World Happy Mind, which reportedly received a copyright strike for using a short clip in a critical video. The content wasn't re-uploaded or stolen. It was transformative, something YouTube's fair use policy explicitly protects. Blair's response? Legal threats and takedown notices. For a creator who made a living dissecting shady business practices and calling out unethical behavior, this behavior was seen by many as pure hypocrisy. Instead of engaging in good faith discourse or simply ignoring minor critique, she escalated to copyright threats, something typically associated with large corporations trying to silence smaller voices. The backlash came quickly. Many in the commentary and video essay community labeled it as bullying, accusing Blair of attempting to control the narrative by silencing even mild criticism. This wasn't just a petty feud between creators, it was a major red flag that exposed a core contradiction in Blair's entire online persona. Her reaction to criticism wasn't just defensive, it was suppressive. Instead of engaging in open dialogue or correcting misinformation, she resorted to DMCA strikes, a move often criticized when done by corporations or influencers trying to silence dissent. For someone who built her platform on exposing exploitative behavior, this was an unmistakable act of hypocrisy. Smaller creators already vulnerable in the YouTube ecosystem were left feeling intimidated and powerless, worried that fair use commentary might trigger legal threats. It sent a chilling message: critique Blair and risk being erased. In a community that thrives on accountability, her behavior clashed directly with the values she claimed to champion. It became clear that her commitment to calling out bad actors only applied when she wasn't the subject of critique. This episode, while seemingly minor at the time, planted seeds of doubt among her audience, seeds that would fully bloom during the much larger controversies that unraveled in the years to come. Together, these incidents revealed the early and foundational cracks in Blair's brand, cracks that many now see as warning signs of her eventual implosion. It wasn't just about a one-off editing error or an occasional bad take. It was about a consistent pattern of skimming over nuance, doubling down when corrected, and taking aggressive action against those who disagreed. Time and again, Blair seemed more invested in maintaining her polished image than in getting things right or being fair. Whether it was poorly sourced research, misuse of copyright tools, or her tendency to block and ignore critics, each choice chipped away at the integrity she claimed to value. Her brand had built itself on exposing corporate dishonesty and manipulation, yet behind the scenes, she appeared to mimic those same tactics, controlling narratives, dismissing accountability, and curating a version of herself that didn't hold up under pressure. What was once framed as a commitment to truth started to feel more like a commitment to control. In hindsight, these behaviors weren't just isolated incidents. They were the blueprint for the collapse that followed in 2023, when everything she'd built on that shaky foundation began to unravel. This wasn't the end of her either, as the controversy came to its boiling point during the defamation lawsuit she filed against Oz Media Wonderstruck Guy and another employee she had called Felix the Kit Kat. This, alongside the earlier cease and desist claims filed against the YouTubers as well as the attempted repossession of Oz Media's house, clearly showed everyone while going down. She wanted everyone to go down with her. She has lost the online war, and now she was taking the fight to court. Blair also brought up the alleged breaking of an NDA by Felix the Kit Kat, another former employee of hers. For context, Felix was the one who provided the click with screenshots confirming that Blair had been operating under the now infamous Doobie account. This revelation played a key role in exposing Blair's actions and was a major factor in Felix being named in the lawsuit as well. It was yet another example of Blair using legal threats and NDAs to maintain control, even as former employees stepped forward with evidence of her misconduct. The lawsuit had begun, and Blair accused the three of slander and defamation, which caused her YouTube revenue to drop. However, in the court documents provided by fellow YouTuber Madcaster, there was no clear segment defining what she meant by defamation. In Felix's case, he had signed the NDA in 2021, but the messages he shared were from before 2021, and he had shared them at a time when he was no longer employed by Blair. Similarly, Oz and Wonder had only been defending themselves against Blair's slander in her apology video. It was clear Blair didn't really have a solid case against the three, and this was further proven when she was asked to submit more details multiple times during this year-long battle. Oz made another video in which he explained how much money it would be taking him to fight this battle, and explained a very traumatic situation that him and his current partner had underwent, urging Blair to stop pursuing this case. However, he claimed that if she didn't, he would be ready to fight back.
Hide everything and blame anyone but themselves, and wouldn't you know it, that's exactly what happened here too.
My settlement offer is for you to drop the lawsuit, for all parties involved, even Wonder, with prejudice. I won't file counterclaims and would no longer be required to upload the second part to this video. And what do you get? A chance to prove your side of the story, or even take accountability for your actions. If you proceed with this lawsuit, by the time that it's done, especially with what's left of the judge's order, there would be no platform for you to return to, as you still need to answer for not just me, but for everyone else you've harmed on this platform. It would be difficult to return to a platform with a label that you hypocritically participated in the very business tactics that you've reported to be in opposition of for the past 4 years. I'm offering you a chance to clear your name on a third-party neutral platform. Think of it as a conversation. Rather than use the corporate tactic of bullying those who speak out against you, why not prove you're different from them?
It was clear that Blair just wanted some sort of win to stroke her ego, because she continued with the suit. Unfortunately for her, this never ended up happening, as eventually she dropped the suit. While we can only speculate this was probably not because of the video Oz made, nor was it because she grew a conscience. It was most probably because Blair realized that she herself would run out of money pursuing this lawsuit, as now that her online career had ended up in flames, and her other businesses were suffering, she would have to take the defeat. In a short video uploaded by Oz Media, he explained the situation with Blair.
Blair and I have agreed to settle this matter confidentially through mediation. The lawsuit has been dismissed against all parties without any admission of fault by any party. As a part of the non-disclosure agreement, it should be known that Blair will not be sharing her side of the story behind this dispute, nor will I. No one should contact either of us further about this case or ask us to comment on it, or each other. As I have stated previously, anyone following me should never make threatening remarks to anyone involved in this case in a public or private forum.
He said that Blair and him have decided to settle this matter confidentially, and neither of them will be speaking about it any further due to NDAs, and that both have decided not to make comments on each other, and that the claims have been dismissed with none of the parties claiming responsibility. But while the legal battle came to an end, the damage was already done. Her once cult-like, devoted fan base pretty much dissolved. Former viewers who sang her praises now saw her as the very thing that she'd spent her life exposing. This wasn't a simple cancel culture drama. No, this was a serious one-time controversy that will hang over Blair's head for the rest of her life. It was master level, sustained manipulation, weaponized silence, use of power, and a continuous refusal to take any ounce of accountability. This entire controversy will serve as a reminder that even the most seemingly innocent people can have some of the worst skeletons in their closets. And in Blair's situation, these said skeletons were loud, messy, and impossible to ignore. She had lost her fans, her businesses, and all the respect she garnered over the years in one fell swoop. On this note, we would like to end this video. If you have stayed this far, then don't forget to give this video a huge thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Also, don't hesitate to comment down below and share your thoughts with us. What do you think about Blair? Was he downfall or inevitable, or did she deliberately bring it upon herself?